We decided, my executive and I, some months back, we talked about the state of the economy and some of the struggles our people are having. And after I had discussed with them my concerns and their concerns, we said, well, listen, Zane, with the experience that you have in life and in business, might be a good thing. And it's certainly something that I take pleasure in doing. And as you know, Dennis, I didn't have a projector. I didn't have any screens. I didn't have a script. I discussed with the people that showed up tonight my life and how I've run my life and how I've run my business. And, those life experiences that I had at that time certainly, I think, helped me as I grew older, and I want to pass on that knowledge. And sometimes it's simple things. It's simple things that we need to do in order to organize our lives such that we can have success along the way. And so basically that's what it was about, just simple money management with our paychecks every week. We talked a lot about saving money and sacrificing and working hard so that we can someday own our first home. So it was good. I enjoyed it, and I hope that someone tonight, whether it be with themselves, their family, or maybe family members when they leave here, maybe cousins, friends, that they have discussions with, that this will go a long way into helping them in the future.
Good evening, everyone. Is it warm enough for you tonight? Yeah, I stepped out the door and I said the best thing I could do is go back in and put on a coat because it was pretty cold. Well, the reason that we're here tonight is to listen to MP DeSilva, I think, talk about how I'm going to get my first house. And you all are going to help me. But anyway, he was actually at the college today and he spoke to my students. And I thought I'd come up here and support him. We actually talked about the very same thing, and it was very, very interesting. He's a man that comes from very, very humble beginnings, and I very often use him because his story is one that encourages people to do better, to not think that because you don't have, you can't have. You just have to work hard and put your feet to the grind, and you get it done. There's not a time for him to be sneaking away, because I'm about ready to give up the mic. But it was very interesting today as we talked with the people that I was teaching. They want him to come back. He said, well, I'm coming back. I got you, Dean. But anyway, without further ado, I know you all want to get into some hot soup and rolls and all that good stuff. I'm going to turn it over to MP DeSilva.
Thank you, Dr. D, and good evening, everyone. I guess I want us to be a little bit as casual as we can. I don't have a set agenda. I don't have a projector. I don't have any films to show you. Okay? But what I wanted to do is just talk to you about several things, and we can pinball it around. And if you have a question at any time, we don't have to wait. If you can, just get my attention, and we can have a question and answer as we go. Because sometimes, some folks, we have these types of meetings. You say wait to the end, then you may forget, or something may distract you. So feel at any time to ask a question or make a comment. But I spoke to my executive some months back, like in the middle of summer. And I told him that I wanted to do something like this at a public meeting. I was telling Peggy Burns just now that she said, I didn't know you were into this. And I said, well, I'm not really into it. For many years now, long before I got into politics, and I decided to be entrepreneur and get into business, lots of people always ask me, first of all, can they meet with me? I'm thinking about going in business. Can you help me? Can you give me some pointers? And I'm by no means any doctorate. I don't have any degrees. I didn't go to college and university and all that stuff. So I am who I am. What you see is what you get. Okay? So over the years, there are many people that ask for these meetings, and I'll just give them the best advice that I can. And I can only give them the advice that I've experienced through life, in business and in my life. So that's what I've been doing for a while. And of course, after I got into politics, then people want to meet about other things. And we've talked about, I've had my workmen who come to me and say, boss, look, I can't make it. I'm not making it. So we sit down and we have conversations. And like I said, I'll pinball around tonight. And I'll talk about some of my experiences, whether it be in life and whether it be in business or politics. But I'll just fire, and then you guys can ask questions. Did anyone listen to Sherry's today when I was on Sherry's?
Yes.
Okay, so some of you heard some of my stories. And a lot of people ask me, when I go up to the college and I speak to students, and sometimes the students are older than me. But, I've been up there several times to talk to folks, and I basically talk about my life. Because people say, well, this guy, who's this white, rich, silver spoon guy? There's a lot of people, think. And sometimes you can't blame people. Here you got this guy, got a big business or has several businesses. And, you say, okay, all right, well, maybe his daddy, his mama gave him X, Y, Z. But my life was a little different than that. My mama, Lord bless her soul, she's gone now. But she was a bit of a wild woman. She was married 5 times. And my father was married 3 times. So we had a lot of things going on in our life when we were younger. Okay? So what happened? Zane gets kicked out of school when he was 16. And I go to work. And I told my mama at the time, I said, look, I'm a big boy. I'm going to get my own apartment. She said, okay, go ahead. So off I went. Got an apartment, signed the lease, $250 a month. I said, I can handle that. But I was only making $50 a week. So, but it didn't register to me then that, at the end of the month, I'm going to pay $250. Well, $50 a week times 4 weeks is $200. So I'm already short. I paid electricity, I bought groceries, I done this. So after my first month, I said, oh man, I don't have enough. How am I going to do this? So it didn't take me long to figure out that I had to get more money to pay my rent, then electricity, then telephone, then, maybe my bike license and insurance. So anyhow, off I went. I said, well, I got to get another job, and then another job. Long story short is, I ended up with 5 jobs at one stage. Okay, I worked at American International from 9 to 5. On my lunch hour from American International, I changed my clothes real quick. I'd go paint. I used to paint for the hour. Sometimes you steal 10 minutes, but I just change your clothes. So I would do that. Saturdays, I worked at some of my senior people in the house might remember London Shop in the Washington Mall. So I worked at London Shop on Saturdays. And it was a cycle shop at the top of White Hill called Somerset Cycles. And I used to work up there on Sundays. And then next to Somerset Cycles, it was a restaurant called Caesars. And I used to work up there waiting on tables. Then a hustle came available at Henry VIII, a couple of nights a week, washing dishes. So I took that. So I had a nice little thing going for a while. Then another job came up at Disco 40. Again, bar porter, taking the glasses out the back, washing them up. So I tell you all that to say that I was hustling. I didn't have any degrees, didn't have any diplomas or anything like that. And so I said, well, I'm going to do what I can. I'm going to work. I'm going to use my physical. I'm going to just do whatever I can to work. And I blew some money in the early days. I was saying on the radio today, those first 2 or 3 years when I left school, I thought I was a king. Chasing the girls, spending money. Anything I was making, it was going out between expenses and what little running around I did. So, fast forward a couple of years. When I got about, I met my wife when I was 18, started dating, got married when we were 22. And I was about 19, 20, and she'll tell you she moved in with me before we got married. want to try out first, because I got to try them out first. So we, went a little trial run. So the trial run was working out pretty good. So I said to her, look, I'm saving money. I want you to save money too. She said, okay, all right. So off we went. We started. We got married. I said, nah. I was 22 when I got married. I said, listen, I'm tired of paying rent, okay? And I moved in that apartment with her. We was paying $400 a month. And that was a lot of money back then, trust me. Then the next thing is the rent went up to $425. I said, okay, all right. Another 6 months seemed like yesterday, just 2 days between, she takes it up again. And I told Joanne, I said, look, no. I want to be that person that's collecting. I don't want to be the person that's paying. So, off I went. I said, now I'm really going to go on a mission. I said, now look, we got to get this house as soon as possible. I said, a goal. I said, I want to buy my house by the time I'm 25. I didn't quite make it. We bought it when I was 27. But I'll tell you what we did. I said, now listen, we're going to go on a mission. Your parents ain't got no money. My parents ain't got no money. We ain't got no friends or family going to give us anything. So we got to do this on our own. So I started looking around at property and houses. And I said, no, Zane, how you ever going to get a house on this income? How you going to do it? So I said, look, keep saving. And a lady called up Magic today and said that, she had her eyes on a house that was 600 and the bank wanted 20%. She says, how am I going to get to 20%? She sounded like she's professional and she's making good money. But she didn't have, she said, how am I going to get it? And that's where I was. And I said, nah, okay, Joanne, this is how it's going to work. We're not doing dinner. We're not doing clothes. We're not doing this. We're not doing that. The only thing we're going to buy is stuff that we need. Anything that we need, that's what we're going to get. Any of the wants, nail polish, hair dye, fancy clothes, designer jeans, Louis Vuitton purses, none of that. None of that was going on. None of that. And in fact, if you heard me today, our dinner was peanut butter sandwich. I will obey, watch the sun go down. That was our dinner. That was it. Mayonnaise sandwiches too. As a former health minister, I hang my hair, I hold my hands out. I used to eat a lot of mayonnaise sandwiches. In fact, it weren't too often that my grocery list weren't this. Loaf of bread, peanut butter, and mayonnaise. That was it for the week.
Sesame Street.
Sesame Street, that was it. So that in those early days, that's what it was about. Now, as Joanne and I got going, we started looking for places. And it didn't take me long. I said, well, I'm going to go look. I looked at a place on Spring Benny. Nice place. Nice little cottage. 2-bedroom, had a little yard and all that. I said, how much you want for this, partner? He says, well, that's $250,000. Well, that's out. Nobody, I can't even think about that. That's like today, going to look at a house and somebody wants $2 million and you're just starting. It's just not happening. It's not going on, right? So we kept looking. Found a place up Somerset, which I called my shack. And it weren't a shack, but it weren't far from it. Plywood on the windows, no pipes coming down the walls to catch water. We slept on the floor. All the cupboards were broken doors and all this stuff. My son, Zane Jr., who is here tonight, his bedroom was the kitchen. That's where his crib was. My daughter was in another 2-by-2 bedroom, could hardly move in there to change her diapers. But you know what? It was ours. We bought it. It was a shack, but we bought it. And I'll never forget, we got handed a couch. Somebody's going to throw it in the dump. The couch put out into a bed. That was our first bed. But it was a nice bed for us because we were sleeping on the floor. But, I tell that story because that's where we started. And I tell a lot of people that come to me and say, Zane, how can I get my first place? And we started having a conversation, first of all, about money. And then we talk about, well, if you've got a bit of money, or when you get to a bit of money, don't go down Tuckerstown, look for a house, partner. Look around at something that, start doing it backwards. So if you say, well, if I got X amount of dollars in the bank, I might be able to get X amount of dollars towards a house. So you start looking for something a little less. And if my sister was here, she might come tonight, and she won't mind me telling you, because she learned the lesson. She came to me one day and said, Zane, look, y'all got a couple houses, I want one. I said, no, let me explain something to you, sister. I said, no, look, you're 40 years old. I said, y'all been traveling, y'all been doing this, y'all been doing that, y'all got all these nice clothes. I said, you always had your hair on, your nails. My wife had the same pair of pants for 15 years. I had to put up with that, stuff for all that time. I said, now listen, you ain't getting one of mine. I don't work too hard for it. But I'll tell you what, I'm gonna help you to get one if you really want to. I said, now how much you spend on your nails every week? She said, $50 every, 6, 8 days, whatever. So how about your hair? Looks like you got a nice little dye going on. I said, well, that's a couple $100, depending on when I get it done. Sometimes maybe 125. I said, okay, well, that's out. That's finished. I said, now your car. She had a fancy car, nice wheels, box in it. The box, you could turn it on here and hear it down, can't feel, right? So I said, no, sell your car. She said, sell my car? How do I get to work? I said, buy a bike. She said, where's it raining? Get a rain suit. Yeah. I said, get a rain suit. I said, no. Do you want to get your own house? Well, you gotta make sacrifices, sister. And I said, look, what you do weekends? Oh, get another job. What you do nights? Well, I said, get another job. I said, I'm not asking you to work 24/7, but if you want to get ahead, you're not gonna do it on that wage. And I'll tell you what, flick channels real quick. I was proud of my sister. She lost a job a couple of years ago. She worked for an exempt company. Everybody, a lot of our people lost jobs. She was out, she's worried. She said, look, she did get a house afterwards, by the way. And she says, I'm out of work. She's worried, I said, okay, I'll go to the bank, talk to them, put you on interest only. But I'm paying it for you. You pay yourself. You're going to, float your own boat. Got my eye on her. What I could do? I said, Penny, I'll tell you what. My mama passed, bless her soul, I told you earlier. But my mama used to clean offices and houses, right up to the day she died. I said, Penny, you know what? Mama used to make a bit of money cleaning houses, I said, these girls are making $25, $30 an hour, and they're working for themselves. So all they have to do is pay their own insurance and whatnot. I said, if you get 5, 6, 7, 8 houses a week, maybe a couple offices at night or something, you might be able to make a few dollars. And I'll tell you what. She said, well, what about advertising and all that? I said, look, internet, do your own thing. Penny DeSilva, cleaner. And go around town, put them on people's windshields, go around offices, drop them off. Hustle until you get one or two. Then if you get one, you do a really good job, they might tell their friend, right? So fast forward, she's doing well. She's doing good. She's got a few homes, and she's paying a mortgage. So I had to tell that little story. But the other thing is with my sister, when she first started looking for a house, she had a couple of dollars, not a whole lot. She had a couple. She went to go look at a place. Well, she called me and said, go look at a place with her. So I went. Okay? Place was in town, just outside of town. There's $450. I said, sister, you can't afford this. It ain't working. I said, let's keep looking. She said, why not? Got in the car and she started crying. What, you want me to live in a dump? I said, I used to live in a shack. I said, you want your own house, Benny? That's what you gotta do, sister. I love you to death. I said, but I'm gonna help you find one. Long story short, we found one for about $275. Weren't the best.
But it was a house.
It was a house. And it was her house. And she's doing well, she's done all right, and she's done it all on her own. Okay? So that's that part of it. The other thing is I'll flick over now to managing money. And I was telling, I think, Hannah, maybe a couple other people, and I've told this story a lot. When I started working, I told you I was making $50 a week. Okay, then later on I make 75, make 100, and as I got older, I made a little bit more money. But what I found is that if you got money in your pocket, I'm sure you all experience it. You got money in your pocket, you get paid, boss give you $600, put it in your pocket, say, well, that's cool, I can manage it. Next couple of days, I'll sort it out. You go out with your mates, have lunch. Hey, I got this, Ron. I got this lunch. Go down the road, get a little hungry. I'm gonna buy this. I walk past the shop. Oh, that's a nice shop. Before you know it, it's gone. Well, a lot of it's gone. And that's what I found. So I said, no, I got to do something. So I said, and I don't know, Peggy, when you said today you're an envelope girl, because I said that on the radio, when she came and said she was an envelope girl too, I couldn't believe it, right? But this is what I done, because I was coming up short. I said, get my paycheck, I'm not doing anything. I sit down at the table, open it up, and when Joanne came home first, I said, hey, give me a paycheck. Just put it here, line it up on the table, and I started. Envelope number 1, electricity. Okay? What's my electricity bill on average a month? Maybe, at that time, it was like maybe $50. So I said, that's $12.50 a week. So I take $12.50, put it in an envelope. Said, what's my gas bill? Okay, gas bill, I had a mobilette at the time, so I just take it, put $10 in there. And so on and so forth. My rent, if it's $400 a month, $100 a week goes in the envelope. Right? So what happened is, at the end of the month, guess what? Everything's paid, because I get my electricity bill, I look, said, put $25 aside a week, it's $100 right here, boom. But the other thing I did in envelopes too, is I'll put a miscellaneous. Because what happens when I get a flat tire? You know? What happens if I get sick and I have to go get a prescription? I have to get some Advils, or I have to do, so I had my little miscellaneous envelope too. And then I also had my bank book. And I'll never forget, Joanne probably remembers. But in the beginning, I was putting $5 in the bank every week. I said, I'm going to put it in. The key was, when I put it in, never touch it. Ever touch it. The world would have to come to an end. I told Joanne, I said, we're not touching it. And before you knew it, it adds up, And then what happens at the end of the month? If the miscellaneous envelope have money in it, guess what? Well, I didn't touch it. So I take the miscellaneous money, put that in the bank. Get the electricity bill, it was $75. Well, I had $100 in the envelope. Take $25, put that in the bank. You see what I'm saying? So, and then before I knew it, and when I put something in the bank, the golden rule, don't touch it. Make do. Because what resourceful people, I saw times where, I would say, I get my paycheck, I do this and do that, and then it's gone, it's gone. The only way you can get money is you steal it or you go to family member. And you say, listen, I'm running a little short, I'll pay you back on payday. But once it's gone, it's gone. So in my eyes, my mind, I said, you know what? Once it goes in the bank, do not touch it, ever. And that's what I found as I was doing the budgets. And some weeks, you all know, some months have 5 weeks. So now those are my bonus months. Right? Those are my bonus months, because I just done it by 4. But, I said, wait a minute, this month has 5 weeks. I'm got an extra, every envelope that I put in, so what do I do with that? In the savings bank. In that bank. So, before I knew it, I said, well, you know what? I got $40,000. I had $40,000. Do you remember that number? Because that's when we bought our first house. We had $40,000, went to the bank, no mama, no daddy. And I said, oh man, this guy, he's looking at me. And I know all the stories about black people and Portuguese, and going to banks, not getting no money. You're not the right last name. And I said, man, this guy didn't give me a warm and fuzzy feeling, not to use a political word. But I didn't. I didn't get a good feeling. I really didn't. I walked out, I said, well, I'm not feeling good about this. But he did call me in a couple of weeks, and he did give us the mortgage. That's when I bought the shack for $166. But the shack weren't the best place in the world, but I'll tell you what, over a couple of years, I fixed the windows, I fixed this, I fixed that, and then before you know it, I said, look, I'm putting this house on the market. She said, are you crazy? I said, nope, but let's see what we can get. Put it on the market for $250, right? One of my boys who came up to look at it said, I heard it's for sale, what you want? I said, $250. He said, you're crazy, I know you got it for $166. I said, yeah, partner, but look what I've done. I said, but $250 is what I want. So, long story short, I sold it. But now, I had a couple of extra dollars. I had more than 40. I bought another place. Now this place had an apartment. So see where I'm going? You know, the apartment helps with the mortgage and all that. So that's the housing thing, and that's how I got started. Okay. With the budget thing, it's tough. It's tough, and not everybody is going to be making enough money where you can sort of repeat that story I just told. Because there's things
on that same story, what happens if a single parent house got 2 children and trying to do the same thing?
Well, see, they're in it, like I said, right. Like, it's not, this little scenario is not going to be everybody. And everybody's, because I think I talked about it on the radio today, or maybe it was out to college.
Yeah.
But a single mother might have 3 children.
Yes.
And you know what? That's a mountain. That's a mountain and a half. Because and she may be on financial assistance. And she may never, ever get to earn her first house unless she finds somebody that she marries and later on, you know. But that's a toughie. That's going to be tough. But even still, she might be on financial assistance and she might have a little part-time job or what have you. All I would suggest to that mother or father, because I've got some single fathers out there too, right, is I would suggest to them, look at your situation, look at what you're spending money on, and, you know, the thing is, when things are that tight in life, you got to get a little enjoyment too. You can't expect for a single mother or single father to work, baby. But that's how some of our people are, though. Some of our people are in that position. Live to eat and eat to live, right? And that's going to be tough. But we have a lot of us that are together. And the other thing about getting ahead, I forgot to tell you this story. When I went out on my own, I was by myself, but I weren't by myself for too long, you know. They used to call me the fly in the milk, even though I was white. I had 4 black brothers that moved in with me. We guys, because we guys are all buddies, right? Said, hey, boy, we were all struggling. I said, look, why don't we guys go get a 3-bedroom apartment? And let's share it. And that's what we did. So now, we guys are cutting everything in quarters, because it was 4 of us, right? It's 4 of us. Kevin Bremer, Sheridan, Kevin Burris, Sheridan Bremer, Alfonso Caesar, from all Somerset boys, right? We guys are all from Somerset. So, but that's what we done. So that was the other thing that I would encourage, you know, young people to do, right? If you find your struggle, look, let me tell you something. Some of these Portuguese and Indians and Filipinos that come here, you hear about them all living in a room together, right? Hey, look, we guys done that. We done it, and we guys all saved some money during that time too. Mind you, we spent a lot too. It was my longer days too. We chased girls and, you know, don't know, hanging out nights. Just go 40 looking for calorie deal, you know, and all that stuff. But no, it's those types of things that you know, one could look at, whether it be saving money for your family, whether it be, like, I know that some financial advisors tell you, if you want a boat, well then you set goals, you save so much. Now me personally, my brother loves boats. He's got a 50-footer. I'm not a boatman, never been a boatman. To me, my thing was always real estate. Because a boat to me, when you list your assets and liabilities, I always put a boat down as a liability. Because it's gas, it's wear and tear, it's paint, it's this, it's that, and all that stuff. So, but some people like boats. If you want to save for a boat, look, to each his own. You know, to each his own. So, but my thing is always try to set a goal at the beginning of every year. I still do it. Last weekend I sat down with my wife, my son, and my daughter, because I'm trying to bring them along now. And his 27, going 28, and my daughter's going 31. And, you know, I said, listen, I want to sit down with you guys, and you know what? We went through the little envelope thing, the little budget thing, and said, this is what I do, this is what you got to do, you know, this is where you're at. So set goals, and don't be afraid to look at them I still do mine every month. I still do it. I'm old-fashioned, I guess, but I look at my stuff every month. But I tell you, I do a serious assessment once a year, and what I do, after 6 months, I say, well, how am I doing? What am I doing? Am I on track? Am I not on track? Do I want to make some adjustments? Do I want to say, look, you know what? Me and my wife have worked really, really hard this 6 months. Maybe let's go out for a nice dinner. But let's not forget we want to buy that house. Or we want to save X amount of dollars so that we can get to where we buy that house. So that's sort of, I think that's about, for now, that's about it. I don't know, did I talk, I don't think I talked about the, I don't think I talked about cigarettes today on Sherry's show.
Yes.
Did I talk about the cigarettes on Sherry's show? Yes, I have.
One thing I'd like to know is when one has saved consistently and amassed a substantial sum of money, what then should they do with it? That's what I'd like to know. The other thing is, like my grandson.
Don't ask me too many questions back to back, but go ahead.
Okay. This is coming. What I used to remind my grandson of is that anytime you buy those things that you don't need, you get stuck with it, resonate with him. You're stealing from yourself.
Mm.
You see, and I often used to say to him, when you work and you start getting paid, make it 2 paydays. You mentioned about putting aside,
Right.
pay yourself first. And I used to tell him, that's money you do not touch. That's money that's going to look after you in later life. There's an elderly woman who came on talk radio many, many years ago. She made the comment about how she came to Bermuda from, I think it was Jamaica, and one of her mentors was an elderly Bermudian, and she lived up at Happy Valley at that time. And she worked like yourself, did all kinds of jobs. And the thing about her, she saved consistently. And then she managed to acquire a lot of real estate out in that area. And of course, the residents in that area they were not too happy about that, right? Here's this woman, she's not a Bermudian, she bought up all this property, But you know what she said? She said, when you're young, you work for your money. And when you're old, your money will
works
work
for you, right?
Yeah.
Right.
So it's all those little pithy sayings that mean so much.
Mhm.
And I think that for the most part, most people, well, not in my family, I think that in my family, we talked about, well, let me back up. Very often we're told that we should save, but we're not taught how to save. Money wasn't something that was spoken about in my home. I just instinctively knew that it was small, because my father was a dairy farmer, a man of the soil. And so we lived off the land, of the earth.
Mm.
And when I went to school, high school, one student commented, oh, she's a farm girl. She shouldn't be in school, should she? But
Right.
the thing is, if my parents had, I guess, taught me about the value of money, really how to manage it, but I paid attention to my mother. My mother was an envelope woman.
Mm.
My father, on the other hand, he used to take, those window envelopes?
Yes.
He scared me. My father scared me. He used to take these, when the mailman came to deliver, he'd just take them and file them up in a cabinet and close the door.
Right.
And back in the day, we used to get 3 notices. I can't remember exactly what color. Was it, the first notice was white, the
That's
second
right.
notice
That's
was
it.
yellow, and the third and final was red.
Yeah.
And I, as a child, I was so terrified. I thought the police were going to come and take my father.
One thing is, I've got a great wife, because she's put up with me. I moved and look, I've been no bad. Just last year, I moved back up to Whale Bay from Devonshire, just last year, right? And I've been doing that all my life. I got the most patient wife in the world, I think, because we moved about 15 times in the last, we've been married 34 years this year. And when we moved, seriously though, we probably moved about 8-10 times. But, I say, well, look, the market's good. Let's see if we can rent this house out. We leave this house, we go up to this one. We leave that one, go to that one. Leave this one, go over to that one. But that's what I'm a creature of habit. And she's asked me now, is this the last time? So, I don't know if it's going to be the last time. But, Valerie?
Yeah. Mr. DeSilva, can you explain to us by today's standards, right? We have people that have come in. Some of us have jobs, some of us don't have jobs. And we're making a fairly decent salary. But when we go to the bank to try and negotiate, the rates and the charges they put on you are sometimes impossible to manage, even with your good salary. How do you get around that? Talk to us about what these institutions are doing, how we can manage ourselves accordingly.
Okay. Now, that's a very good question, because when you ask what can we do about the institutions, and I know several people, and I told one story today on Magic, right? It's a professional couple that are making good money. They just started, got out of school. Both of them were very smart. They're working with international business, making big dollars. Okay? And I know one of them, and he came to me with his story. He said, look, we got everything lined up, all the expenses, everything. Everything was soup to nuts, a miscellaneous, of this, and they reckoned that if they bought a house for X, and let's just say $1 million for now, and that's probably not far off where it was. They said, you know what, the bank won't lend us money. And they worked it out, said, well, I can pay the mortgage, we can pay all our expenses, got a miscellaneous envelope, I'm still got $3,500 left over. Bank says, no, can't, you don't qualify. Now see, that to me, that's hurtful. And this is where the banks, I think, need to ease up. The banks have got to start, especially with our Bermudian people. You know, they do. You know, we know that the banks took a hit in 2008, but a lot of that was their own fault. A lot of banks were greedy, okay? But now they expect everybody else to suffer for it. And it's painful when you hear these stories, like Ms. Deal just said. And what can you do? And that question was asked today. The only thing that I can suggest to do, I'm thinking of myself. If me and my wife were making good money, and I know that I could afford to buy a house for 1.2, 1.3 million, I know I can make the payments, because you can get the amortized schedule and tells you what your payments are a month. Let's say it's $10,000 a month. Well, I know with what we're making, we can pay $10,000 a month. I can pay my electricity. I can pay I can pay the land tax. I can pay my maintenance on my house. I can do all that, but the banks say no. So the next question is, and what I would say to myself, Ms. Deal, for me, I would say, okay, you turn me down? All right, how much I need, banker? What do I need for my down payment? What do I have to give you for you to give me this mortgage? And if he says, look, you need $200,000, well, that's my target. I said, okay, no mama, no daddy. We're both professionals. We know we're gonna make money. Let's go on a mission to save that $200,000 as quickly as we can. And you know, one thing about real estate, it's in Bermuda, it's more or less, it has gone down recently, but it's on its way back up. But in Bermuda, right, if for that professional couple to answer Ms. Deal's question, what I would do is just go on that mission. Now, I'll tell you what, go right back to when I started. We're not buying any clothes. We're not buying any shoes. We're not doing any dinners. We're not doing any trips. We're not doing this. Now, if the couple stick to that program, to me, if you can pay your mortgage, or say that $10,000 a month, you got $3 left over, $13,000, okay, times 10 is 130, in 2 years you got your 260. So that's what I would do to answer your question. Me personally, if I was in that situation making that kind of money, that's what I would do. And we had that question. We had that question today from a young lady that called into Magic, and you know, she said it was 600,000, and the bank wanted 20% down. So that's 120. Girl probably just came over from school, but she got a real good job. So I would tell that sister, look, go on a mission, girl. Yeah. Go on a mission, because you're obviously making good money. But, you know, I can tell you what, when we get back in the house in February, this issue is coming up. And I'm going to put a little pressure on, because, and I don't want to get too political, but Bob Richards, the finance minister, said several times that he's going to be talking to the banks about helping people. Well, let's get on with it, because we have too many of our Bermudian people that are right on the cusp of buying their own place, but just can't get it. And the banks have got to be a little bit more flexible and help people out.
Dan, I have a question on that too. You see what you're saying there? But if you have family members and the parents passes away, what does the bank do then when there are younger people in the family that's taking over the household? What do they do then? Like in my situation, like I've got two younger brothers, but we're all on the same deed. Right. What does the bank do then?
Well, it depends
one
on
person's working.
Well, it depends on whose name the deeds are in. Whose name
the whole
is
family.
on the whole family's on the deed. So you're saying your mama passes, what happens? Mm-hmm. Well, then it would be you three guys. Now you're saying you're the only one that's paying on it?
Yes.
Well, you gotta have a talk with your brothers. Right? You gotta have that conversation. Now if your brothers are not gonna contribute and you're making all the payments, you need to go see a lawyer, and you need to work that out. Yeah, and a lawyer's gonna have to do that for you.
Okay.
But that's what I would do, is first of all, try to talk to your brothers, say, now listen, if they're working and they can't contribute as much as you, then you guys should keep a little note. If your payment's $1,000 a month, you're paying 500, they're paying 250 each, well, you make a note, sooner or later they have to catch up. But I would put it in writing, get a lawyer to do that up for you,
Okay.
because later on, family
never
do
know.
fight. And I
They
can
do
tell you,
fight, yeah.
I've
And
had
I'm
fights
seeing-
with family.
I'm
Yeah.
seeing a lot of fights over houses with family when they so that I earn this because I'm living in the house and it doesn't work that
Yeah.
way.
Always best to put it in writing,
Okay.
even with family.
You know the saying, every day we awaken with three concerns: money, family, and family with no money.
Yeah, that's right. Sir,
Yes, good evening.
good evening.
The lady asked the question, if someone had money to invest, what would be a safe place to put it in? And you gave an answer, but I didn't quite get it. So would that be the only place, or would there be other places?
No. Now, first of all, let me put my hand up. I'm certainly not a financial advisor. I'm not a guru. I don't work for a bank. I don't work for a financial institution. I'll just give you my layman, down to earth point of view. Now, if you have money and you say you want to know where to put it, well, it depends on how much you have. Now, if you got $50,000, I would say, well, you keep it in the bank. Or you might want to buy some shares in a local company that's public, so that you hopefully your share value will go up in time, but you also get a dividend every quarter, because most of the local companies on the stock exchange do pay dividends. So it won't be much, but I tell you what, 5% on your 50,000 in a company is certainly a lot better than the banks are paying now. Okay. Now, if you've already bought your first house and you're starting to accumulate money, well then, what I did, of course, I started looking at my second house. So you say where to put it, that might be another goal. Now, you might want to just keep it in the bank and earn 1.5%. I think the banks are offering a little bit more since the interest rates went up recently. I don't know if they're doing it here just yet, but certainly if you can afford to keep it tucked away for 3 or 4 years, they might be offering 2.5%, 3%. I'm not sure where that number is with the different institutions in Bermuda. But as you start getting more, you start getting up around 100, 125, 150, and then you might want to look at a little real estate. One thing about real estate in Bermuda, it's dropped in the last couple of years, but you don't see it drop too often.
Okay. Another question. Say you have a house, and you're actually pretty close to paying it off, and you happen to lose your job, something goes wrong. And you go to the bank, and you negotiate your payment, you stretch out the payments over a longer period, at a cheaper cost, and they'll be done.
To answer your question, most banks will. It's called refinancing, and most banks will do that. I know one of my friends got that done today. Got it done today. He ran into a little challenge, right, in terms of employment. Missed a couple of payments. In fact, I think I talked about this example on Sherry today too. And the good thing, and long story short, is that he only owed 82,000 more in his house, and he ran into a little challenge. Bank was really roughing him up, which I weren't happy about. I won't call the name in public. I may do it in the house because I got immunity in the house. So I may call the name in the house because I think that's quite wrong, to be honest. But no, a lot of the banks will do that, especially during these times. You only have to ask a question, especially if it's almost paid off because you have equity in the house.
Yes. Not only that, you only end up you're paying a little less while you're paying, but you're paying on a longer basis.
That's right. That's right. You stretch it out, but it's more digestible. It doesn't hurt you every month. The only thing that I would suggest you do if you get refinancing like that is always try to talk the bank into agreeing that if things got really well in the next year or so, you can give it back in a lump sum without a penalty. Because a lot of banks, if you go, you say, look, I hit the jackpot, I hit the lotto, I want to pay it off. They say, okay, you can pay off that $500,000, but you're going to give us $50,000 fee. So if you renegotiate, make sure that you have those terms written in the agreement.
But you can't, say you got down to say 50,000 you owe on your house. You can't just take the 50,000, just pay it right off, right? They don't. And
Well, like I say, it depends on who you borrowed the money from and what the agreement is. Because even though you might have had a mortgage for 15 years,
Mhm.
and you get down, you have 50 left, if you pay it off early, there may be a fine, a penalty.
Penalty.
Repay, or early
Would
repayment.
it be much of a penalty?
Well, it all depends on the agreement.
Or depends?
And it depends the amount. I can tell you, one time, I owed one bank $1 million. And the payments were high, the interest rate was high. And I negotiated with the other bank to take it over. And they probably knew that. And they wanted to charge me $70,000 because in the agreement it said I had to give them 90 days notice. So I said, okay, no problem. I talked to that bank and I gave him 90 days notice. So I didn't pay the penalty. But I've been back there since though. They weren't very nice. So,
If I can just add a little bit to what you're talking about investing. My son actually had a tax relief question because it's making a little bit of change. He said, Daddy, what would I invest in? I said, what do you buy the most? You know, I said, you like Nikes? You look at Nike stocks. You like Adidas? You buy Adidas. It's the same thing that Warren Buffett does. Whatever Warren Buffett buys, he tends to actually support it. So like Coca-Cola, yeah, it's Coca-Cola. It's into trains, so you buy trains, you buy the things that he does and uses on a regular basis. So anytime when it comes down to investing, just take a look at where you actually spend your money day in and day out and look at those companies.
and that's very true. And I'll tell you, when I first got into putting money in the stock market back in the 90s, I'll tell you what I first bought. I said, let me look around. Toothpaste, all the household items, underarm, you know, things that people use every day, toilet paper, things like that. So I said, well, Hewlett Packard, Intel was good. You know, I said, we're going technical, Intel, Microsoft, Yahoo, you know, things like that I bought in early, well, actually in the 90s, it was even late for me. But, you know, some of those things that I bought back in the day were very, very fruitful. But you're right. I used to look at it just that way. You know, Gillette, you know, razors. You know, because I shave every day. Man, all the people in the world that have to shave. I said, well, I better put some money in that. Pharmaceutical company, same thing, Mark, and you know. So yeah, that's not a bad thing either. You get you can do it, I think, locally, or you can, you know, for me, I have, you know, a few friends overseas that, you know, I have this relationship with, and if I say, look, I want to buy certain stocks, they just do it. But that's certainly a good point.
Can I make a suggestion? I
Yes.
think because a lot of the conversation is, well, I thought the intention was to how to get a mortgage and things like that. If your goal is to purchase a home and you want to save, like Mr. DeSilva mentioned, there are a number of insurance companies specifically, and I'm not putting in a plug because I do not work for them, but Argus has a wealth management program where you can go and see a wealth manager for 30 minutes. It's something that's free. That one-time thing, and then what you do is you actually sit down and they create what looks like an assets and a liabilities form, and they go through or tell you how to budget so that you can meet your goals. So you might have a short-term, a mid-term, or a long-term goal. So in your short term, you might say, you know, the first 6 months, I want to be able to save $10,000. So what do? You make your net is $4,000. Then you have to consider all of your expenses that you do. So you probably have left over $1,000. But what can you do? Can you take that $500 and can you split it? So let's say you put $200 here or $200 here and then another $100 here. What I'm saying is the opportunity to go to a wealth manager to be able to look at a budget that would help you meet your financial target is available. Now on the flip side of it, wealth managers, if you do have a large lump sum of money, let's say you have $150,000, and you don't necessarily want to keep it in the bank because if anything happens to the bank is only going to insure you up to $20,000 or $25,000 of that portion of money. They can say, look, we have a number of funds that we can do. We have an aggressive fund, we have this type of fund and things like that. And you pick and choose where you want to put your money and then what's the dividend. He mentioned dividend, but it's the return on your investment. So you put your money into, like, I know a lot of people in Bermuda do what they call partnerships or your
Boat club?
But yeah, there you go. You put your club hand in. But the thing about it is the only difference is that you're getting an interest rate specifically on that amount of money. If a club paying, you just put it in and you need 10 people and you get your money, it's accelerated, so you get it within that specified amount. So there are options. So, I mean, not to go, people are talking about different things when it comes to land, when it comes to your land and your property and stuff like that. You need to see a lawyer, a conveyancing lawyer for that. When it comes to stuff like that, when it comes to your budgeting, I would suggest or recommend going to a wealth manager to be able to talk about your budget, your expenses, where you can cut back and consider their sacrifices. Then that's just, like I said. that's my-
And you're right, and you're right. The only thing I would say is that you know what your expenses are. Everyone knows what their expenses are, right? And going back to the envelopes, that's where you're at. It's the same thing. And the difference is with a money manager is they might be able to point some things out to you that you might not think of. Certainly that I might not think of. Like I said, I'm no money manager. I'm no finance advisor for anybody, except some friends that want some pointers or my family or what have you. You're right.
Or they can create a plan for you. If you're not the type of person that is able to organize or strategize and say, you know what, this is what I want to do. They might say, look, if your bill is short term and you want to do it in 6 months, this is what you do. And they will create a map for you to be able to do it. The rest is really the discipline and up to you to be able to put your money aside and say, this is how you're going to do it. And I think that's really what it boils down to, is personal responsibility. When you start talking about these large amounts of money, I think what you need to do is really consider going to, well, insurance is the place to go. So you want to go to any firm that basically has investment programs that you can see how to expand your money further. So you, for instance, you might say that, you know what, I want to take up life insurance for X, Y, and Z in the event that something happens to my property or you.
Yeah.
For any purpose. You're thinking, you're not thinking, I think what we don't do is we don't look from a future perspective, we're looking at the present, at the right now. So the future is, I own a house, I have children, let me get life insurance, or think about all the other products. And a lot of these insurance companies have a whole list. You might look at it and say, well, this is a lot of money, but when you think about a life insurance program when it comes to your property and stuff like that, you're paying what? Less than $100 a month, and then if you go up to bed and you happen to use suddenly, guess what? That's taken care of for the rest of your life. People don't think about success, and especially when it comes to their heirs or the benefactors or beneficiaries of those types of big assets and stuff.
Also, if anybody has a chance to buy a house, buy it.
Yes.
Take a chance and buy it. Don't be scared, take a chance.
That's right. That's right.
Because in the long run, more than likely you'll succeed, because you can find yourself getting very determined on what. If you start, once you start, you say, yeah, I gotta finish this off, and you will find a way.
And it gets
But not
easier.
only that, you're not gonna work for rent the rest of your life. People who don't buy, they'll be paying rent for the rest of their life, vending and ruler still will be paying rent. You should be in your own house, be paid for it.
And in those early days,
Take years.
in the early days, you're right. And anybody that's had a mortgage knows that first year or so is tough. But you know what should happen? What should happen after a while? What should happen after a while, though, is your wage should increase. And as wage increases, and as you save more and more, you might have a son that gets older. He might contribute, every month. But you're right. My thing is, I've never been afraid of debt. Never been afraid of debt. And even we're in my political hat. I say this in the house all the time. I'm not afraid of debt. I'm not afraid of debt at all. Good debt. There's a difference between good debt and bad debt. It's like when we spent $95 million building Dame Lewis Brown building. $95 million. But you know what that saves the government a year? $10 million. Guess what? In 9 years, it's paid for. It's paid for. After that, government's going to save $10 million a year. So now, if you're going to get your credit card and you're going buying things, and at the end of the month you don't have any money to pay it, that's not good debt. It's not good debt.
Same thing applies to a car. People say they can't afford a car. Go buy yourself a second-hand car. Fix it up. Get it running good. Sell it. Get on a new car.
That's right. Yeah. And the sister mentioned it as well. and I talked about it earlier, right? Is you have to be determined. You have to, once you make a commitment, it's like when you put that money over here, that's it. It's staying there. It's staying there until whether you set a goal for, whether it's a boat, whether it's a car, whether it's your child's education, or whether it's your home. That money is going to go in there and it's not going to move until you know that here it is, it's 10 years later, I know I've got X amount of dollars, I've got a down payment for X. And then you know that you've been steadfast, you've sacrificed, you've stayed, you've been, held your own feet to the fire in terms of saving, and you reach your goal. That's what you have to do.
Mr. DeSilva, also for people that work in, when I work in the international company arena, our company afforded us the opportunity to buy shares, and they reinvested them for me. And I would say to these people, to any young people and stuff like that, who work in that area, take advantage of it, because they have some of the best rates and managers that take care of your shares and investment. And that's how I do it.
And that is another good point. If it's anyone that does work for international business, if you have the opportunity, and a lot of times employees will get shares at a reduced price too. Or you'll get stock options if you've been there for a year or 2 or 3. Then they'll give you X amount of shares. And as Ms. Deal said, if you can take advantage of that, then do it. And you usually have people that work in the company. Like the sister said with the insurance companies, you usually have someone in the company that can give you advice. The only thing you have to be careful of is when you do accumulate cash, and you talk about whether you invested in CDs, whether you invested in stocks or what have you, just remember that not all of them go up. Sometimes they go down. And I'm with the sister when it comes to wealth managers, because I am no stockbroker. I can, I've done a bit of that in my life. But you know what? Most of my stuff today is done by money managers, because that's what they do. They're the experts. Because I'll tell you, what you might say, oh, well, how many people owned oil when it was 130 a barrel? And then I remember, I think it was my son mentioned to me, he said, hey, oil's down to like $65. You should buy some oil. And we met one of our friends who this is what he does for business. He said, well, look, you might think that you're going to buy stock when you believe that it's a crash, and it's crashed and it's dropped down. Make sure that crash is not a dent, because it may drop even further. And if you look at the stock market over the last week or so, you'll see just that. So, you have to be careful how you invest. And usually if somebody tells you you can make a lot of money off your investment, that's a red flag to me. I'd much rather somebody say, look, I'll give you an annual return of 3.5% for 20 years, than to say, well, look, I can get you 10 or 15, 20% on this investment. That gives me a lot of concern. Sounds nice. Ask anybody to have money that made off before he was caught. But, folks, I don't know if you had any more questions.
With the high cost of real estate market, do you think that it would be a good idea for Bermudians to look overseas to invest in what they call properties that, what do they call them now? There's ones that you buy.
Timeshare and...
No, buy those, sell high and do it quickly. Oh my goodness, flipping real estate.
Right.
I try to get a group of people to do that. Where we all come to the table, we save a month of money,
Right.
purchase property overseas, and have somebody at that end resell it for more. Not really purchasing something that you're gonna hold and lease or anything like that. None of that.
As long as you can handle it when it doesn't work out well. Because the United States is no different than us. They have had some bad hits too. And there are opportunities all over the world, not only in the United States. There are opportunities in real estate. But it's funny you said your group of you got together, because trying to get a group together to do it. And it may work. I know people that have done it. I know people in Bermuda that have done it. But it's risky, and when you can't kick the tires, it gets a little worrisome. and that you're putting faith in somebody to actually do the transaction for you. Buy it, fix it, turn it over, flip it, and make money. It's risky. It's just risky, and it's just a matter of how much risk you can take. If you have $100,000 that you feel that, well, if I lost it all, it's not going to kill me, and you can take that risk. Well, then maybe that's something that you could do. But it all depends on risk. When you start getting cash and doing different things with it, it's what one's appetite is. I've tended to myself personally. This is my home. I'm not going anywhere. I'm gonna be here for life. And I tend to look at opportunities in Bermuda myself. So if I can invest in a property in Bermuda, I will certainly do so.
But I was thinking it sounds like a little cash outlay and, a greater return on your money so that it would then enable you to really buy what you want to buy in Bermuda. Being it outside Bermuda for this foreclosure, a couple of $100 is going forward.
Yeah.
And then a collective action, group
And yeah,
because, you know that, gift clubs and hand clubs in Bermuda is a big thing, right? And these people, I asked them, well, what do you do at the end of the year when you get your hand? They all take cruises.
yeah.
I remember when I had a mortgage and I was working at the airport, I used to see my friends coming toward me and then I'd see their backs and every one of them buried me.
Right.
Oh, you don't take a vacation, you're gonna kill yourself. But you know where they are today? Still out here struggling to pay rent. 9 years I didn't travel.
And that's the sacrifices we
But
talk
discipline
about.
too,
Yeah,
you know,
it is
that-
discipline and sacrifice.
I must say, I was never aggrieved. My sacrifices, I was never sad or disheartened because I always kept my focus on the end result.
And if you set a goal, you reach it. And you can see yourself reaching it. You're getting satisfaction every day, every month, every week.
The funny thing about it, somebody said, now that you made your final payment on your home, how do you feel? I said, normal. I wasn't excited or ecstatic or anything, but I knew when we first took on the mortgage, I couldn't sleep.
Oh yes, I have many of those nights. Oh yeah. So.
Fellows is that you work all your life on a pension through your job. Goes to, say, one of the insurance companies. At the end, it's a pretty nice sum. But then when you want to pay you back $300 or so a month, you may not even live out that money. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You may die before they hardly pay you.
Yeah, and of course.
Why do they pay you so low? Why can't they pay you at least half for the whole? Well, I know they're reinvesting it, and they're making money off your money, even though you put money in before.
Yeah, of course they do. That's what they do. Insurance companies.
That don't sound legal.
No, well, I don't know if it's legal. Sometimes I worry about the legalities of some of these schemes too. No, I feel you and I hear you. And it's funny because I'm meeting with pensions tomorrow. As I said, every year I look at my situation, and tomorrow I'm meeting with pensions. So I'm going to get a good little feel as to where things are, because I like to sort of plan for my family too. I said, listen, if I kick the bucket next week, I want to know what the deal is. So I'm going to sit down with them and say, because I'm getting older now. It's hard to believe that I'm approaching a certain number, but but the thing is that I am getting older. So I'm trying to, Dr. D, thank you very much. Thank you. So, but no, you insurance, depending on what kind of scheme you have, depends on and different insurance companies have different programs. And I don't know if, Celine, I don't know if that's in your field or not with regard to pensions and things like that, but certainly you can speak to it if you.
Well, it definitely depends on what type of plan your company had. I know before 2000, company pension plans were not required. It was an optional benefit that some good employers did provide for their employees. But you had to be in a lot of those plans maybe 10, 15, sometimes 20 years before you were vested. And vested means that you are entitled to the money, all of the money. And if you had to put in a portion, and the employer put in a portion, once you became vested, that means you are entitled to all of the money. And then also before 2000, some of those plans were defined benefit versus defined contribution. In a defined benefit plan, it depends on what the plan rules call for and how they define that benefit, whether you got a lump sum at the, when you retire, but so much in a lump sum and then so much is spread out over, what your
Yeah.
respective life was. So it all depends, but people that, the only pension they were ever in is this current company scheme that government put in place in 2000. You figure that's only 15 years that plan has been in place. And so people that got into that plan at an older age didn't have as long time horizon as some of these young children are now. Plus, people are just putting in a maximum of 10%, either 5% from you, 5% matched by your company, and let you have a generous company that put in the whole 10% for you. And it definitely is a defined contribution versus defined benefit. So it all depends on what type of pension plan you had and how you chose to have your contributions invested. And most people, when they were trying to make that decision, really didn't know what to do. A lot of people chose a guaranteed option, which was like no risk at all. So you got a fixed amount of interest that would be accumulated. And in the grand scheme of things, that fixed amount of interest is very low. But because people are afraid and don't know how to invest, they go with what they think is a sure thing. If you've done a guaranteed option for the whole 15 years, you probably don't have as much money as you could have had if you would have, taken a little bit more risk and diversified your contributions so that you could see a little bit more returns. And of course, every time somebody would see a loss when they would get their statement, immediately they want to panic and, reverse the way they were investing instead of riding out the storm. Because over time, investments do outweigh.
Give a return.
They do give a return. So when you look at a pension, it's an investment until you turn 65. And the reason why you can't get a lump sum when you retire unless you put aside extra contributions on a voluntary basis, which goes into a separate pot, that when you retire, that voluntary money is available to you in a lump sum in cash.
You can get a lump sum.
Yes, if you make voluntary contributions.
You're gonna have education, or
Right.
you can't make mortgage payments in your house. You will need a lump sum.
But a lot of
But you
people-
have to get that and you can
Yeah,
get it.
but a lot of people think, I don't have any extra to save, so then they don't do it. But I think if you take whatever small amount you can take and put it aside in that voluntary pot, you'd be surprised how
How it
fast
builds
it'll
up.
grow.
Yeah.
And by the time you're 65 and ready to retire, you have a nice little lump sum of money. You can do whatever you want with it. So, like I said, it varies between what type of plan you have, defined benefit versus defined contribution, how long you were putting into it, and how you strategize your investment. So, that's when you have to take some proactiveness and say, I really don't know what I'm doing, can somebody help me? And all of the, companies that provide pensions have somebody on their staff that can meet with you and kind of give you some guidance on how you can help better your chances of having more money.
Okay, thanks, Selena. One moment, brother, sister.
The pension that you're talking about, is it government pension you're talking about?
No,
or private pension?
government pension, your private pension through your.
Do you ever work?
Yeah.
But to me, it seems like even when you work for government, you put aside, you should get pension taken out of your pay. And then like you said, when you get 65, why you can't be entitled to, because isn't it your money that you save?
It's love thinking.
Yeah, like for government pension, you still only get
They won't pay it to
you only
you.
get paid, like you said, $300 to $400. So how are you gonna survive to pay your rent at that age? When the cost of living is high, cost of groceries are high, and it's your money that you save. That don't make any sense to me.
But I tell you all one thing, if you can afford it on your private insurance through your workplace, go for the maximum. Stay there. Rather
Okay,
than
thank you,
go
brother.
down.
Let's
Stay there.
get a question.
You still might get
And your money will get that.
Yes,
I
sir.
just wanted to ask you a
Take a
question.
risk, man.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I was maybe forget what I was gonna ask. But anyway, the question about the advice that I want to try to get is, the difference in, people always say, go buy a house. I don't want to buy a house, I want to be able to afford a house, because I'm hearing these stories that people get into retirement age, asset rich, cash poor, they're hanging on to this thing, they can't afford it, and they're into the grave. So how do you position yourself where I can afford it rather than me just buying?
Well, I think it might be one and the same. Because in order to buy it, you must be able to afford it.
But meaning saying that, when you're purchasing and you're paying the mortgage, you got income, because obviously you're working a 9 to 5, whatever the case may be. And you turn 65, you tend to put out to the pasture. You're not making what you're making.
So I see what you're saying. So you hear a lot of stories about like our seniors that they've bought the house,
Right.
and by the time they get a little older, where they stop working, it's paid for, and then you say that's where they are asset rich and cash poor, because they spent all their life paying it off, and now that it's paid off, you're saying that they don't have much money, but they have the house.
Because you still got the cost of having to
Maintain it and all that stuff. Now,
insurance and all the other
right,
stuff.
now what, and this is, I'm gonna flip back a few years to my story, is when you buy that house, that first house, you have to start thinking about, now when I was 27, that's when I bought my first. And I started thinking then, well, of course, I didn't start thinking about the second one until maybe 3, 4, 5 years out. I said, well, man, I thought, well, I might be able to do it. But what I did do though early on, and this is what I'm telling my sister right now, I said, Penny, she's 4 years younger than me. I said, you know what, you're getting older. You just had to refinance, it's gonna be another 10 years. I said, you know what you gotta start thinking about, sis? It's like, when the house is paid off, you're gonna be older. You may not be working like you're working now. In fact, you probably won't. Now you gotta start thinking, because she gets a little relaxed, as we do, because if you've been paying for 10, 12, 14 years, it should be easier. You should be making more money 10 years later, and you might have other people in your family that are helping to contribute, your children get older, what have you. But what you have to do, to answer your question, in my humble opinion, is you have to then start saving for when you get to that stage. It's almost like your mission. It's got to be your mission. Unless you've been lucky and taken some gambles and you've been able to accumulate wealth, and you're only going to have so much. By the time you hit 65, 70, if you live that long, you're going to say, well, man, let me press on, because I got to a stage where everything that I was doing was for my children and my grandchildren. That's where I'm at now. I got to say, well, look, I'm thinking like down the road, I probably worry too much about these things. Because I'm always telling people, and Valerie will tell you, anybody that knows something, I'm always saying, look, if I die tomorrow, I want to try to make it so that, I leave things behind in a pretty decent, understandable way. Don't leave a mess. Try not to leave a mess, even if you have one house. I'm digressing a little bit, but to answer your question, try to save. Get that first one. If you get that first one, don't rest. Try to think ahead 20, 30 years when you do, so that you're not asset rich and cash poor, because that can put you in a jam too. And hopefully by that time you can build up a little bit of cash. You might be able to say, well, look, that house that I bought, I wonder if I can put an apartment on later on, because maybe that apartment might help you out. So if you save up, again, this is something I told my sister, told her earlier. Look, sis, save like it's no tomorrow. Pay your mortgage, save like it's no tomorrow. Plan for the worst and hope for the best. And I said, your goal should be to put on a 1-bedroom apartment, because that one little bedroom, even a studio, might be able to get you $800-900 a month. So when you get older, brother, yeah, you might be 65. That 800 may not be a whole lot to some people, but to some other people, 800 a month coming in pays for the paint, pays for a little fridge breaking down, pays for any plumbing issues you may have. So that's what I would suggest.
Right now, I'll be working more to my wife dead right now.
Well, if you got a nice life insurance, you might be. Yeah. But you know what? You made a great statement. You might be worth more to your wife dead than alive, because what you've done, what you just told me, is that you plan for the worst.
Yeah.
If you get struck by a bus when you go out there and she gets life insurance, she gets that check, she can pay off the house, she'll be able to keep it and hopefully survive. She'll miss you. But, you know, like I always said, I don't know, man, I kick the bucket. My wife, well, not my, I leave my wife out of this. When I kick the bucket, my children might cry for a couple of days after that. They're gonna have a hell of a party. But I don't know if it's anything else that we need to discuss. I don't know if I missed anything. The only thing I would say, folks, is that if it's not you, the only thing I hope to accomplish is maybe whether it be you or you can then tell some of your family members, some of your cousins or brothers, say, listen, you know, if they're struggling, you might hear something tonight that can help them. Say, listen, look, why don't you sit down and look at how much money you got coming in. Look at your expenses. And every week, try to put away to take care of your expenses so that they can, you know, hopefully you can help them live a little bit better, more organized life. But to be able to budget and to be able to plan, set goals, and reach those goals should be something we all should strive to do. Okay? Any other? And before you go, I did ask my friend, Mr. Burchell. I don't know if you know Mr. Burchell, but he tends to he used to certainly give the PLP some stick when we were in government in terms of our finances, and he certainly holds the current minister to account, that's for sure. But Larry, I don't know if you wanted to come up and say a few words, if it was anything that I may have said that you might be able to add to, or if it's anything that you feel that any question that was asked where you might be able to contribute, or are you telling me I've done a pretty good job, Mr. Burchell? But no, Larry he did come up. I did ask him to come up in case anyone had any questions, or, you know, if we were on a topic that he felt that he could make a contribution to. So thank you for coming out, Larry, I appreciate that. And then Peggy called me on the news today, on the magic show today, and she mentioned some of the things that she had been doing all her life in terms of budgeting and envelopes and stuff like that. I thought I was the only one, but no, it was really nice to hear that, and she's coming out. She has printed some books, and if you wanted it, I told her I want a few. I'm going to give them to my workmen and my children, because I'd like them to read it. It sounds like it's right on this subject of managing money, budgeting, and things like that. So, Peggy, I look forward to getting that from you, and I certainly want some for some of my workmen too. So, thank you all for coming out. If you ever have any questions in the future, I think you all might know how to reach me. I'm happy to meet with you at any time to discuss anything you may want to. Okay, take care.